Thank you for being with us for this summit. I'd like to really thank Human Capital for putting this together. There's quite a lot of learning for us as well. So I'll just get into it from my space. So next. So I just thought we would probably bring it home in terms of what's affecting us in the agriculture space as well as the SMEs. We know why this is important to us, these two sectors, but I just wanted us to draw into two main things, and really it's to say there are 160,000 SMEs in this country, 90% contribution to the entire private sector, contribution of that in terms of the private sector comes from the SME. Over 2.5 million people are employed in the SME sector, and 80% of Uganda's manufactured output is from the SME sector, but we only contribute 20% to the gross domestic product, GDP. That's for the SME sector. The agriculture sector is even worse. We employ 65% of our population in agriculture. We earn $1.1 billion from exports in agriculture, and only contribute 23% to Uganda's GDP. And that, for me, is a disconnect. It surely means that there is much more we can earn from these two sectors. There's an intersection, definitely, because there are agro-processors that are seated within the SME space, but it's a very key thing for us to really stop and ponder and think about, because there must be so much more that we can do to contribute to GDP than we are for these two sectors. Next. There are challenges in both the SME and the agriculture sector. And the first and foremost one, yes, I'm in banking, but I will say it, is limited access to funding for both of them. Now, the reason for that in the SME space is because of the way the businesses are run. There's no business plans or financial resources. There's a poor banking and borrowing history, low corporate governance, and as such, the bulk of our SMEs don't see their first year, the first birthday. They don't get there because of all these challenges. In the agriculture space, there's still limited access to financing. And the reason for that is really because of the nature in which we run these businesses. They are subsistence farmers. Over 65% of our farmers practice the subsistence way of running their business day to day. And we like to call it businesses when we are talking to these farmers. We want them to start to think of this as business, not as something that is just to sort of get them to start thinking better, how best can they run their agriculture. They are price takers. Even when they try to use better methods, they will probably access adulterated inputs. They lack the knowledge of best practice. They have no access to secure storage, so they are forced to sell. They'll probably, in most cases, sell their produce while it's still in the garden. And they have tried to organize themselves to fill the gap through cooperatives and circles, but unfortunately for those two spaces, they have their own structural issues, governance, best practice. So the circles, in a way, also have some gaps in that space. And then there's a big issue around land ownership. Next. So how digital tech can enable agribusiness and SMEs in Uganda? That's what I'll be really looking at. So I just thought I would go through that by taking us through, just a brief understanding. When we talk about digitization, what do we mean? Digitization, digitalization, it's all that. And really what it is to just to convert something into data format. And when we talk about data format, it's just you get something as small as how much maize I have produced and get it into a digital format. Now, when you talk about digital format, I think in my mind there are three key pillars that we would look at. And the first one is connectivity. Connectivity could be your laptop, could be your iPad, but I want us to focus on the phones, because that in itself is the power in which we can use to get to the next level within the SME space and the farmer space. There are 27 million mobile subscribers in this country, much more than bank accounts. We don't even have half the bank accounts in that space, but their mobile is out there. 27 million people subscribe or have a mobile phone, and that in itself is 63 penetration rate. The second pillar that I think was also talked about by Mono is the data. Really, it's that information that you then convert into the digital format, that data. Data is very important. It's created every day. There are over 50% of the web queries over the internet are searched using smartphones. Hence the reason as to why I want us to really focus on the smartphones or phones. They don't have to be smartphones, they could be feature phones, but there's still something that we can use those for. And then the third thing is the literacy. You need higher rates of literacy to get into this space. It's not to say that it's a smooth ride. There are some challenges in that space, in the digitization space, and the fact that we have poor mobile networks, the agent infrastructure isn't there. Agent infrastructure, I mean the mobile agents as well as the banking agents. And then the costs involved with these channels is also up there. And then the biggest other issue is the data quality. If that quality is terrible, then you make decisions using wrong data and you will go nowhere. So those are the key things we need to look at. There are benefits to digitization. I'll just speak to a few. And in the financing space, it is through, so when we talk about data, I can use a scoring engine to actually decide how much I can lend someone to. Our way of banking has been that you walk into the bank, and from that point onwards until your funds come through to your bank account, they will go through an individual person. And that is too hectic, or it's not possible when we talk about the smallholder farmer. These are, farmers are more than 5-6 million in this country. It's not possible to do that. It would just be too expensive and defeat the purpose of being able to lend to them. But if we have that data on the farmer and say, I know how much acreage Melisa owns, how much has she produced, if she's maybe producing maize, and what is her output over the last 3 years, when she sells it, how much does she earn? I can use that to pre-score Melisa and give her funding based on that. So that's the importance of data, of digitization. In the financing space, you can also access insurance products, and it has allowed us to go branchless, allow branchless banking. When I talked about the agents out there, there are so few brick and mortar branches or bank branches, but out there, we can access everybody literally to the last mile if we are using our agents, the banking agent model. And that's only possible because of data. And please note that every time you visit them, they are not using computers or laptops or iPads. They are using the mobile phone. And that's the importance of digitization. The next one is, I think we've heard about it, the access to new markets. That is where we saw this come up a lot during COVID. The digital marketing, people were able to sell things via Facebook, WhatsApp. That's the importance of this space as well. But when I talk to agriculture, it allows me to have trading platforms to give people access to, you can sell. Imagine a situation where you can get onto a platform and sell your maize in Kasese to someone in Gulu, or even across the border. It's possible with digitization. The other space that we need to explore, we are still getting there, good enough, our government has gotten into the warehousing space, is the digital warehouse receipts, where you have your commodity, your maize, you put it in the warehouse, and use that receipt to actually access funding, even before you sell it, because maybe, who knows, the price at that point in time is not favorable. But you're hoping in a month or two when the season is off, you can access better rates. So I'll leave that there. We have advantages with digitization in terms of cost efficiency. You can monitor your storage conditions, digital cost tracking, how much for me to, in the agro-processing scenario, if I'm to produce 1 unit, how much does it cost me to actually produce that 1 unit? What's happening in this country is we just have a broad assumption of some of these things, and at the end of 6 months, so much money has been coming in, but all that money is getting out, and you're actually not making any profit. But you simply cannot pinpoint where that problem is. But with the digital space and collecting all that data and analyzing it quite well, you can go back and tie those knots wherever and make it work for you. In the planning space, it's also, we can use digitization for planning. When I talk, I know I'm using farming quite a lot. Please note I'm in the agribusiness space. But it really should cut across for the SMEs as well. When we talk about planning, you know when to stock. Your season is coming up, you look at your historical data and know when do you sell the most, when do you sell the least. What days are the best for you, what days are the, what hours. If the hours, what are the peak hours, how many more people do you need to work in those peak hours. So it's a whole world out there that we can use. And specifically in agriculture is also the climate change. You can use that to, this one is actually working in some places where you just, even if you have just a feature phone, you're able to receive messages telling you what the weather will look like in the next 2 weeks or 1 month. So when do you need to plant? When do you need to do whatever you need to do? It is that important. It is that we can't afford to not embrace digitization because it will take us places. Next. So I just thought I would take us through briefly a case study within the bank, and it's really around how we are trying to use digital products to address the plight of the smallholder farmer, and it's an illustration of our One Farm platform. This is taking place in Kasese, but we're looking to move that into other districts. We've been working with maize, but are looking at adding on other products such as coffee, barley, and see where this takes us. So it is essentially a platform as you see it. On the left is the smallholder ecosystem. On the right is the enterprise service system. So essentially the smallholder ecosystem, this is the smallholders farmers ecosystem. You have the farmer there, you have the input traders, the tractor drivers, the cooperatives and circles that really serve these people, agronomists or extension workers, and the aggregators. Aggregators are what we commonly know as the traders. And then on the right side is the enterprise service providers, such as financial institutions, insurance providers, the big manufacturers, exporters, input producers, and our very important partners who are the technology partners, the agri-techs, the fintechs. They sit in this space. They're rock telecoms of this world. Sorry, but you do share when you do come up. But yes, the rock telecoms of this world that sit in that space. So we will partner with the likes of these channel partners to sort of collect that data on the farmer, as I'd given an example of the acreage production, and use that, feed that into a credit scoring engine, that's digital, to be able to lend to the farmer. So the services at the top are what we offer. That's to lend, protect, trade, and grow. So to lend, we will lend through the SACCOs or cooperatives because they have that information through partnering with these agri-techs to collect that data on these farmers, and then we use that to sort of lend to them. We don't give the farmers cash. It's not a very good idea. But what we do is give them the inputs. We lend to them in form of inputs. And then in the space of protect is the insurance. We will put insurance packages for them. And really it's to say that we may close out all the loops, but our farming is still based on, you know, what God has willed. The weather today, tomorrow, it is the locusts. So there is an insurance package put into that space because we don't want that farmer to walk away at the end of the 3-4 months empty-handed. And insurance covers that. And then on the trade aspect, it's to ensure that we get this farmer and connect them to other big aggregators, exporters, and sort of create that market linkage for them, while also exploring the warehouse receipting and storage solutions as I earlier mentioned. Grow, we have an agronomist on ground, and the reason as to why we had to do that is because our farmers have been using the subsistence way of farming. They do not know when and how to apply the fertilizers, and the importance anyway. And so for us to get this to work, we had to get an agronomist on ground. But if we are to scale, we know we can't employ, 1,000 agronomists or so. So what are we doing? We're trying to do it the digital way, where the agronomist takes videos showing how this works. And then the agents who are usually in these small villages or towns work together are connected to the cooperatives or SACCOs. And those agents have smartphones and will have been also taught or trained on what to do. So they go around helping these farmers adopt the right ways of practicing agriculture. And then all this is really based on the data. It's a whole digital world out there, and that's what we are trying to do in this space. Next. So this is my last slide. And I just thought I'd share some key successes from this space. It's not to say that there have not been challenges. Please, there have been challenges. But we took it as a learning process to sort of refine it for every season we get into. And based off that, we have gotten better as we go along from season to season. We are now getting into our 4th season, and definitely we'll be looking to take on more farmers. Close to, the target is to get to 10,000 farmers this season. So previously, we've helped over 400 farmers. Those are the ones who have been involved. 3/4 of those are repeat farmers. There are new ones who come on, but they're repeat farmers. We did it through 5 farmer groups and are using the active model agent, the local agent, as I talked about. In terms of funding, we've lent out over 250 million to the farmers. The loans are in form of seed, fertilizer, and mechanization. 3, the productivity increased to over 8,800 kilograms of quality maize have been produced from this. I'll just speak briefly to this because I did meet a farmer who had gone through these 2 seasons with us. So initially he used to do about 1,200 kilograms per acre for each season. Was doing it the rudimentary way. So the first season we onboarded him, didn't want to take too much of a risk. Decided to take on what we were telling him to do with the agronomist, a portion, borrowed a bit, not too much. And for that season, he managed to get 1,800 kilograms. The 3rd season, he said, I'm going to go full and do everything as I've been told with the agronomist, no cutting corners. If you said it is how many kilograms per of fertilizer applied per acre, I will do that. This farmer reaped 3,000 kilograms from that acre that season. As we speak now, he had 6 acres. he's looking to rent more, to double, to get to 12 acres, because he has seen the importance of adopting the new ways of farming as opposed to the old ways, but the only way we can do it is the digital way. And then the other one is, we've talked about, is agronomy, focused extension services. Over 1,130 bags of fertilizer have been distributed to these farmers. The mechanization side, we have been able to get them to use the tractors on their onset, and that is 1,500 acres have been plowed. And last but not least, we did, through some of our partners, avail the farmer groups with 5 maize shellers. That's it from us. Thank you so much. It can be.